There is a liquid fertilizer you can make at home for free that feeds your plants everything Miracle-Gro does. Nitrogen, potassium, trace minerals without a single dollar spent and without a single synthetic chemical. The ingredients are things you already throw in the trash. Gardeners made it this way for centuries before a company put the same nutrients in a blue box and sold them back to you. Stay with me. Here's what you walk away with today. The free liquid that feeds your plants the same 3 nutrients the blue box charges you for, made from scraps you are throwing away right now. The exact recipe and the one rule that decides whether it feeds your plants or rots into a stinking mess in the corner of your yard. And the most repeated piece of fertilizer advice on the internet. The shortcut half your neighbors swear by that is quietly burning the roots of their plants. Let us start with what your plant is actually asking for, because once you understand that, the blue box stops looking like magic and starts looking like a markup. Every plant on Earth runs on the same short list of nutrients. The 3 big ones are printed right on the front of every fertilizer box as 3 numbers. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Nitrogen drives the green leafy growth. It is what makes a plant lush and full and deep green. Phosphorus feeds the roots and the flowers and the fruit. Potassium handles the plant's overall strength, its ability to handle stress and fight off disease. That is the core of it. Some trace minerals round it out, small amounts of magnesium, calcium, iron, and a few others, but the headline is those 3. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Feed a plant those and it grows. That is the entire thing the blue box is built around, and it is the part the marketing quietly agrees with. Pick up that box and look at it. Those 3 numbers on the front, something like 10, 10, 10, or 24, 8, 16, are nothing more than the percentages of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium inside. That is the whole product, a measured amount of 3 nutrients in a salt form the plant can absorb, dyed blue, and poured into a box with a brand name. There is no secret ingredient. There is no proprietary magic. There is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and a label. Once you truly understand that the famous blue box is just those 3 common nutrients with a price tag, the question stops being whether you can replace it and becomes simply how cheaply you can get the same 3 nutrients onto your plants. So the only real question is this: what is the cheapest way to get those 3 nutrients onto your plants? And the answer has been sitting in your kitchen trash in your backyard the entire time. Because nature does not keep nitrogen and potassium locked in a factory. It keeps them in living things and plant matter, in food scraps, in the green waste you bag up and throw away every single week. All you have to do is unlock them. And unlocking them is as simple as soaking them in water. This is the whole secret, and it is thousands of years old. When you take plant material, banana peels, vegetable scraps, fresh grass clippings, weeds you just pulled, used coffee grounds, and you soak it in water, the nutrients inside that material slowly leach out into the water. The water pulls the potassium out of the banana peel. It pulls the nitrogen out of the grass clippings. After a few days, that water is no longer plain water. It is a nutrient-rich liquid feed, a tea brewed not for you but for your plants. Pour it at the base of a plant, and the roots drink up the exact same nitrogen, potassium, and trace minerals they would have gotten from the blue box, except this version cost you nothing and came from something you were about to throw away. Think about how simple and how old this is. Long before anyone built a fertilizer factory, every farmer on Earth understood that rotting plant matter and animal waste fed the soil. They did not have a laboratory or a chemical name for nitrogen. They just knew, from generations of watching, that the richest growth happened where old plant material broke down into the ground. The scrap tea you can brew in a bucket today is the simplest, cleanest version of that ancient knowledge, taking the nutrients locked inside green waste and delivering them straight to your plant's roots in a form it can drink immediately. Nothing about it is new. The only thing that changed is that somewhere along the way, a company convinced an entire society that plant food had to be bought in a box, and the bucket was forgotten. Let me give you the specific recipes, because different scraps give you different things, and knowing which is which lets you feed your plants exactly what they need. The first and most famous is banana peel water. Banana peels are loaded with potassium, and potassium is the nutrient that drives flowering and fruiting. Take 2 or 3 banana peels, drop them in a jar or bucket with about a quart of water, and let them soak for 2 to 3 days. The water pulls the potassium and other minerals out of the peels. Strain it out, and you have a potassium-rich feed that is perfect for flowering plants, tomatoes, peppers, roses, anything you want to push into bloom and fruit. Pour it at the base of the plant. The second is grass clipping tea, and this is your nitrogen engine. Fresh green grass clippings are surprisingly high in nitrogen, the nutrient that drives green leafy growth. Fill a bucket about a third full with fresh clippings, top it up with water, and let it steep for 2 to 3 days. The water turns into a green-brown nitrogen-rich liquid. Dilute it with about an equal part of plain water before you use it, because it can be strong, and pour it on leafy plants, lettuces, greens, and anything you want to push into thick green growth. The third is a general kitchen scrap feed. Vegetable peelings, the ends of carrots and onions, leafy trimmings, crushed eggshells for calcium, used coffee grounds for a nitrogen boost, all of it can go into a bucket of water together. Let it soak for a few days, strain off the liquid, and you have a balanced general feed, carrying a little of everything. The eggshells add calcium, which helps prevent problems like blossom end rot in tomatoes. The coffee grounds add nitrogen. The vegetable matter adds a broad mix of trace minerals. And there is a fourth that many old gardeners swear by above all the rest: weed tea. The weeds you pull out of your garden are some of the most nutrient-hungry plants there are, which is exactly why they grow so fast and so aggressively. They have pulled minerals up out of the deep soil and packed them into their leaves and stems. Stinging nettles and comfrey are especially prized for this, but almost any leafy green weed works. Drop a bucket of pulled weeds into water, weigh them down, and let them steep for a week or two. The result is a dark, powerful, and admittedly very smelly liquid that is rich in nitrogen and a wide spread of minerals. Strain it, dilute it heavily because it is strong, and you have turned the very weeds that were stealing from your garden into food for it. There is a kind of justice in that. The plant you fought all season becomes the feed that grows your tomatoes. That is several free fertilizers, each one feeding a different part of what your plant needs, all made from things you were throwing in the trash this morning or pulling out of the ground in frustration. The blue box charges you for the same 3 nutrients. Your garbage and your weeds give them away. But before I give you the one rule that makes this work, let me kill the myth. Because if you have searched this topic, you have already been handed a dangerous shortcut. The myth is using raw, undiluted scraps or fresh manure straight onto your plants for a faster, stronger feed. The logic sounds right. If soaking scraps in water feeds plants, then surely piling the raw scraps right onto the soil or pouring on a thick, undiluted brew feeds them faster and harder. It does not, it burns them. Here is the chemistry the shortcut leaves out. When raw, undecomposed material breaks down directly in contact with roots, it releases ammonia and pulls nitrogen away from the plant as it rots. And a feed that is too concentrated draws water straight out of the roots through simple chemistry, scorching them. People pile raw scraps on, or pour on a thick, undiluted brew at full strength, and a week later their plant is yellow, wilting, and dying, and they blame everything except the fertilizer that did it. The strong feed shortcut feels like it should work because more nutrients sounds like more food. It just happens to be more than the plant can take, delivered in a form the plant cannot use. Strain your feed, dilute it, and apply it gently. That is the whole difference between feeding and burning. Now, the one rule that makes the free feed work: dilute it and feed at the base, not the leaves. A finished scrap tea can be strong, and strong is the enemy here. The safe approach is to water it down until it looks like weak tea, roughly 1 part of your strained brew to 1 or 2 parts plain water, and pour it onto the soil at the base of the plant where the roots can take it up slowly. Do not splash a strong, smelly brew all over the leaves, because concentrated organic liquid on foliage can scorch it and can spread fungal problems. Feed the soil, let the roots drink, and the plant gets everything gently and steadily. Do that, and there is no burn, just the growth. Skip it, pour it on full strength, and you will find out exactly why the shortcut fails. Here is the part that turns this from a cheap copy into something genuinely better than the blue box. That scrap tea is not just delivering nutrients, it is feeding the life in your soil. The blue box gives your plant a hit of pure synthetic salts, fast, sharp, and gone. It feeds the plant, but does nothing for the soil, and over time, those synthetic salts can actually build up and harm the living things in the ground. Your free scrap tea does the opposite. It carries not just nutrients but organic matter and the beginnings of microbial life. And it feeds the bacteria and fungi in your soil that break nutrients down into the form roots actually drink. A living soil holds onto nutrients instead of letting them wash away in the next rain. And it keeps feeding your plants long after a dose of synthetic fertilizer would have flushed straight through. So the free feed does not just match the blue box. Over a season, it builds the kind of rich, living soil the blue box slowly degrades. You are getting the feeding and a long, slow soil improvement in the same free jar. This is the difference almost nobody explains to you. Synthetic fertilizer treats your soil like a dead container that you have to keep refilling. That is why you have to buy it again every single season. It feeds the plant, flushes through, and leaves the soil exactly as poor as it found it, so you are back at the store next month. The free scrap feed treats your soil like the living thing it actually is. Every time you pour it on, you are not just feeding today's plant. You are building the soil that will feed every plant you grow there for years. One approach keeps you dependent on a store. The other slowly sets you free from it. And that difference, more than the price, is the real reason the bucket was left out of the conversation. One more, because it costs almost nothing and makes everything work better. If you want to supercharge any of these scrap teas, add a small spoonful of plain molasses to the water as it steeps, not for the plant, for what lives in the soil. The sugar in molasses is pure carbon, and carbon is food for the soil. Bacteria that turn your scrap nutrients into plant food. A well-fed population of soil microbes cycles your nutrients faster and holds them in the ground instead of letting them wash away. If the catch is honest, this only helps if the microbes are there to feed, and in any decent garden soil, they are. It will not replace the nutrients in your tea. It makes the nutrients you already brewed for free go further and last longer. A jug of molasses costs a few dollars and lasts a whole season of feedings. Now let me be completely straight with you, because real knowledge always comes with its honest limits, and I will never hand you only half the picture. These free scrap fertilizers are real, and they genuinely feed your plants. But they are gentle and slow, not a sudden overnight explosion of growth. The blue box is engineered to dump a concentrated, fast-acting hit of nutrients that can green a plant up in days. Your scrap tea works more slowly and more gently, feeding over weeks, building the plant and the soil together, rather than forcing a fast spurt. For most plants in most gardens, that slow and steady feeding is actually better. It produces stronger, healthier growth that lasts, instead of a fast flush of weak growth that pests love. But if you are expecting your scrap tea to perform an instant miracle the day after you pour it, you will be disappointed. And that is the honest truth. Feed it regularly, every week or two through the growing season, and it builds remarkable plants over time. It is a marathon, not a single sprint, and your garden is healthier for it. There is also a simple matter of smell and good sense. A bucket of scraps soaking in water will start to smell after a few days. That is the material breaking down. And it is completely normal. Keep your brewing bucket away from your back door and your neighbors. Cover it loosely and strain it within a few days rather than letting it sit for weeks, turning into a swamp, and use clean water and clean containers. None of this is complicated. It is exactly what gardeners did for hundreds of years before fertilizer came in a box, and they grew everything they ate this way. So here's the whole system, start to finish. Save your banana peels, your grass clippings, your vegetable scraps, your eggshells, and your coffee grounds instead of throwing them away. Soak them in water. Banana peels for potassium, grass clippings for nitrogen, mixed scraps for a balanced feed. For 2 to 3 days, strain off the liquid. Dilute it down to weak tea. Pour it at the base of your plants every week or two. Add a spoonful of molasses to feed the soil life if you want to push it further. And watch over the season as your plants grow strong and deep green on a fertilizer that came entirely from your trash, while your soil gets richer instead of poorer. The blue box gives you 3 nutrients, a quick synthetic hit, and a price tag every single season. Your scrap bucket gives you the same 3 nutrients, plus living soil, plus the satisfaction of feeding your garden from things the rest of the world throws away for nothing. The company put those nutrients in a box, because a box can carry a logo, and a logo can carry a price. The banana peel cannot be branded, the grass clipping cannot be patented. There is no way to build a fortune selling people something they can make from their own garbage, which is the entire reason nobody ever told you that you could. Your plants do not know what fed them. They cannot read the box. They respond to nitrogen, potassium, and the trace minerals in the soil. And they respond exactly the same whether those nutrients came from a $15 box or a free jar of soaked banana peels. The grass clipping and the blue box deliver the exact same nitrogen to the very same root. One of them costs you money every season. The other one was on its way to the trash. The scraps are free. The nutrients are real. The only thing that was ever missing was someone telling you that the food your plants need has been in your hands the whole time, on its way to the bin. Now someone has finally told you. The next time you peel a banana or bag up the grass, you will not see trash. You will see free plant food. Share this with the one good neighbor who still hauls home the heavy box of fertilizer every single spring.